London Waterloo was built by the London and Southeastern Railway. However, it was not designed to be a terminus, but simply a stop on an extension towards the city. It replaced the earlier Nine Elms, which opened on the 21st of May 1838, and connected London to Southampton since the 11th of May 1840. By the mid-1840s, commuter services to Wandsworth, Wimbledon, Kingston upon Thames, Ditton Marsh and Weybridge had become an important part of LSWR traffic, so the company began to look at a terminus closer to central London and the West End. An Act of Parliament was granted in 1845 to extend the line towards a site on York Road close to Waterloo Bridge. The extension past Nine Elms involved demolishing 700 houses, and most of it was carried along a brick viaduct to minimise disruption. The longest bridge was 90 foot long and took the line over the Westminster Bridge Road. The approach to the new station carried 4 tracks, and with the expectation that other companies would use it. The station was designed by William Tite and opened on the 11th of July 1848 as Waterloo Bridge Station. Nine Elms closed for regular services at the same time, but Queen Victoria was fond of the privacy afforded by the old station, so it was kept open for her, and when a replacement private station built on Wandsworth Road in 1854. Waterloo Bridge was originally laid as a through station, as it was expected that services would eventually continue towards the City of London. The LSWR purchased several properties along the route before the plans were cancelled owing to financial crisis following the Panic of 1847. In October of 1882, Waterloo Bridge Station was officially renamed London Waterloo, reflecting long-standing common usage even in some LSWR timetables. The LSWR's aim throughout much of the 19th century was to extend the main line eastwards beyond Waterloo into the City of London. Given this, it was reluctant to construct a dedicated grand terminus at Waterloo. Consequently, Waterloo had none of the usual facilities expected of a terminus until 1853, when a small block was built on the far east of the station. In 1854, the London Necropolis and National Mausoleum Company opened a private station inside Waterloo that involved providing services to Brookwood Cemetery. The station was demolished and replaced with a dedicated building in 1902 as part of the reconstruction of Waterloo in the earlier 20th century. Traffic and passengers to Waterloo increased throughout the 20th century, and Waterloo was extended in an ad hoc manner to accommodate this. In 1860, new platforms were added on the northwest side of the station. These were known as the Windsor Station after its intended destination. An additional dock side into the main station opened on the 17th of March 1868. A 5-chain link to the Southeastern railway line from London Bridge to Charing Cross opened on July of 1865. It was diverted from London Bridge to Cannon Street on the 1st of February 1867 before being withdrawn the following year. The SER opened Waterloo Junction Station on the 1st of January 1868 as a replacement, and that allowed LSWR passengers to change and access services to Cannon Street. A further extension on the southeastern side of Waterloo to provide more services opened on the 16th of December 1878. A further extension to the north beyond the Windsor Station opened in November of 1885. For each extension, the long-term plan was the expansion was temporary until the line was extended past Waterloo, and therefore these additions were simply added alongside and around the existing structure rather than for part of the overall architectural plan. This resulted in the station becoming increasingly ramshackle. The platform numbering had grown in an ad hoc manner, resulting in the confusing situation of number 1 being in the middle of the station complex where it had been since 1848. The original station became known as Central Station as other platforms were added. New platform sets were also known by nicknames. The 2 platforms added for suburban services in 1878 were the Cyprus Station, and the 6 built in 1885 for use by trains on the Windsor line became known as the Khartoum. Each of these stations within the station had its own booking office, taxi stand and public entrances from the street, as well as often poorly marked and confusing access to the rest of the station. By 1899, Waterloo had 16 platforms with only 10 numbers allocated in different sections of the station, or on different levels. Some numbers were duplicated. The complexity and confusion became the butt of jokes by writers in music hall comics for many years in the late 19th century, including Jerome Kane Jerome in Three Men in a Boat. It was criticised and satirised in several Punch cartoons. The LSWR spent the 1880s and 90s trying to finalise plans to continue the line beyond Waterloo to the city. An overhead line was proposed in 1882 and again in 1891, but both lines were rejected due to cost. In 1893, an act was passed by the Tube Railway. On the 8th of August 1898, the company opened the Waterloo and City Line, a deep-level underground railway that ran directly between Waterloo and Bank/Monument Station in the city. This gave the company the direct commuter service it had long desired, albeit with the need to change from the surface to underground lines at Waterloo. With Waterloo now destined to remain a terminus station, with the old station becoming a source of increasingly bad will and publicity amongst the travelling public, the LSWR decided that a total rebuilding in the project they called the Great Transformation. Legal powers to carry out the work were granted in 1899 and 1900. About 6.5 acres of land was purchased to accommodate the new building, which included 6 streets along with an All Saints Church. The LSWR built 6 blocks of flats to rehouse around 1,750 people as compensation for those displaced. Extensive groundwork and slum clearance were carried out before construction of the terminus proper began, including several run-down buildings that had been extensively used for prostitution. By 1903, the land had been cleared for work to start. The new station was opened in stages. It was partially ready in 1909, with the main booking hall opened on the 11th of June 1911. A vehicular roadway to the station opened on the 18th of December 1911. The connection to Waterloo Junction was removed in March that year, but a siding remained in place until the 3rd of May 1925. The bridge remained in place and was used as a walkway between the two stations. Construction of the main station continued sporadically through World War I, and the new station finally opened in 1922 with 21 platforms and a 700-foot-long concourse. The roof and platforms were initially designed by J.W. Jacob Hood, who travelled to the US to look at station designs for inspiration. Following his death in 1914, work was taken over by Alfred Weeks Slumster, and it was built in an Imperial Baroque style out of Portland stone. James Rob Scott designed the office range, the new station including a large stained glass window depicting the LSWR company crest over the main road entrance, surrounded by a frieze listing the counties served by the railway, which still survives today. These features were retained in the design despite the fact that by the time the station was opened, the Railways Act of 1921 had been passed, which spelt the end for the LSWR as an independent concern. Waterloo was a major terminal station for soldiers in World War II and for sailors travelling to Southampton for the British Expeditionary Force. It also handed ambulance trains and mail from overseas. A free buffet operated at the station between December 1915 and April 1920. The station itself saw little damage except for an explosion on one of the lines on the 27th of September 1917. The rebuilt station was formally opened on the 21st of March 1922 by Queen Mary. The main pedestrian entrance, the Victory Arch, was designed by Scott and is a memorial to company staff who were killed during the war. Upon opening, it marked 585 employees who had been killed in World War I. It was flanked by 2 sculptures featuring Roman goddesses, 1914 with Bellona in armour with a sword and torch, and 1918 showing Pax, the goddess of peace, sitting on earth. The LSWR began to look at electrification of suburban services during 1910 using the 600-volt DC third rail mechanism. The first such service to Wimbledon via East Putney opened on the 25th of October 1915, with services to Shepperton following on the 30th of January 1916, the Hounslow Loop Line on the 12th of March, Hampton Court on the 18th of June. Ownership of Waterloo underwent a succession broadly typical of mainly British stations. Under the 1923 group, it passed to the Southern Railway. The Southern Railway continued to use the third rail electrification of lines from Waterloo, including the full service to Guildford on the 12th of July 1925 and Windsor on the 6th of July 1930. A public address system first ran at Waterloo on the 9th of March 1932 and the following decade was regularly broadcasting music around the station. In 1934, the Southern Railway invested £500,000 to improve the signalling and track layout to allow the better use of all the platforms. A full electric service to Woking, Guildford and Portsmouth Harbour for the Isle of Wight opened on the 4th of July 1937, as did connecting services to Aldershot and Alton. On the 1st of January 1939, an electric service opened between Waterloo and Reading with a branch to Camberley and Aldershot, which was designed equally for the anticipated increase of military traffic in the area as well as commuters. Waterloo was bombed several times during World War II. On the 7th of September 1940, the John Street Viaduct immediately outside the station was destroyed by a bomb, which prevented any services running for 12 days. Full services did not resume until the 1st of October, which particularly affected mail traffic to over 5,000 unsorted bags piling up on the station platform. Waterloo was closed again after bombing on the 29th of December 1940, reopening again on the 5th of January 1941, on the same day that station offices on York Road were destroyed by bombings. The station took heavy damage again on an overnight raid between the 10th and 11th of May 1941, with fires lasting for 4 days. One £2,000 bomb was not discovered until it was uncovered during build work along York Road in 1959. Following nationalisation in 1948, ownership of the station transferred to British Railways as part of the Southern region. Under British Railways, border network was electrified and boat train traffic declined in favour of air travel. Waterloo was the last terminus station to run steam haul trains, the final journey taking place on the 9th of July 1967, and it featured a large group of rail enthusiasts with cameras and record equipment attempting to capture the departure of the final steam service to Bournemouth. The electrified service began the next day. The station was owned by Network Southeastern, the British Railways, and following the privatisation of the British Rail, ownership and management passed to Railtrack in 1994 and finally Network Rail in 2002. Although the London terminus of the international railway connection via the Channel Tunnel had long been planned in the north of London, the major construction works required to accommodate this plan had not been started by the time the Channel Tunnel was complete in 1994. Instead, the new platform was to be built on the western side of Waterloo Station, replacing platforms 20 and 21. The new Waterloo International Railway Station was the first London terminus of Eurostar international trains to Gare du Nord, Paris and to Brussels South. An inaugural service left Waterloo on the 6th of May, following a joint service with Queen Elizabeth II and the French President François Mitterrand. Regular services began on the 14th of November, with construction necessitating the removal of decorative masonry formed in the two arches from that side of the station, bearing the legend Southern Railway. This was re-erected at a private Fawley Hill Museum for Sir William McAlpine, whose company built Waterloo International. In the meantime, London and Continental Railways, created at the time of British Rail privatisation, was selected by the government in 1996 to reconstruct London's St Pancras railway station, which had owned since privatisation, as well as a new rail connection, the Channel Tunnel rail link to St Pancras and the Channel Tunnel. Construction of the Channel Tunnel rail link, the second phase of High Speed 1, was completed in 2007, and Waterloo International Station closed on the 13th of November 2007, when the final Eurostar service transferred to London St Pancras International. Ownership of the former Waterloo International Terminal then passed to BRB Residuary Limited. Waterloo Station was to be the central London terminus for the proposed Heathrow Air Track rail service. This project, promoted by British Airport Authority Limited, envisaged the construction of a spur from Staines on the Waterloo and Reading line to Heathrow Airport, creating direct rail links from the airport to Waterloo, Woking and Guildford. Airtrack was planned to open in 2015, was abandoned by the BAA during 2011. That October, Wandsworth Council proposed a revised plan called Airtrack Light, which would provide trains from Waterloo to Heathrow via the same proposed spur from Staines to Heathrow, but by diverting or splitting current services. The frequency of trains over the existing level crossings would not increase. BAA's earlier plan had controversially proposed more trains over the level crossing, leading to concerns they would be closed for the motorists and pedestrians for too long. After the transfer of the Eurostar services from Waterloo, the former Eurostar platforms 20 to 24 of Waterloo International remained unused until they were fully brought back into service in May of 2019, after partially reopening in December 2018. Waterloo suffered significant capacity problems until the former international station was brought back into service for domestic use. In December of 2008, preparatory work was carried out to enable Platform 20 to be used by South West Train suburban services. However, the conversion of the remaining platforms was delayed as it required alterations to the track layout outside of the station. Platforms 20 to 22 were reopened for domestic use at the end of 2018. The final set, 23 and 24, opened in May of 2019. The refurbishment and reopening of platforms 20 to 24 increased capacity at Waterloo by 30%, and the international platforms were only designed to cope with 6 trains an hour, well below the current capacity for commuter services. The project was criticised for its delayed completion time, In 2009, the Department of Transport confirmed that Network Rail was developing high-level output specification options for the station, with an estimated date for reopening of the platforms in 2014, 7 years after their closure. The cost of maintaining the disused platforms up to late 2010 was found to be, via a Freedom of Information request, to be £4.1 million. South West Trains subsequently confirmed that Platform 20 will be brought back into use in 2014, hosting certain services to and from Reading, Windsor, Staines and Hounslow. These will be 10-car services formed of the newly refurbished SWT and former Gatwick Express rolling stock. Platform 20 opened in May with access via Platform 19, and Platforms 20 and 21 opened in October after steps were constructed over the former Eurostar entrance to access these platforms. In 2016, it was announced that Platforms 1 to 4 would also be lengthened to allow new 10-car Class 707 trains to run. Work started on the 5th of August 2017 and completed on the 28th of August. So, to get started here at London Waterloo, we see the arrival of 455862 and 455867, terminating with a Southeastern Railway service off Guildford. Whilst departing in the opposite direction is 450065 and 450084, with the 1309 Southeastern Railway service to Portsmouth Harbour.
Hello, sir.
You alright, bud?
You alright?
Yeah, not too bad. Arriving next to terminate with a Southeastern Railway service off Portsmouth Harbour is 450095 and 450113. Next in to arrive, terminated with a Southeastern Railway service off Chessington South, is 455723 and 455853. Whilst going out in the opposite direction is 450120, with the 1312 Southeastern Railway service to Basingstoke. One in, one out now, with the departure of 455860 and 455914 and the arrival of 450013 and 450105, with the 1312 Southeastern Railway service to Shepperton and terminating with a Southeastern Railway service off of Hazelmere, respectively. Next up to terminate with a Southeastern Railway service circular service off Kingston is 458506 and 458512. Next out to depart is 455 853 and 455 723 with the 1317 Southwestern Railway service to Chessington South. Arriving to terminate with a Southwestern Railway service off Weymouth and Poole is 444044 and 444001. Next up for departure is 455 867 and 455 862, working the 1320 Southwestern Railway service to Twickenham. Whilst departing right behind that is the unmistakable sound of 159 103 and 159 005. Working 1320 Southwestern Railway service to Exeter St David's. Whilst next into the station, terminating with a Southwestern Railway service off Portsmouth Harbour, is 444010. And the fun doesn't stop there, folks, with the termination of 455 733 and 455 919, terminating with the Southwestern Railway service off Woking. Next up to depart is 450 113 and 450 095 with the 1323 Southwestern Railway service to Alton. Whilst arriving in the background, terminating with a Southwestern Railway service off Dorking, is 455 710 and 455 711. There's more, folks, with the departure of 455-866 and 455-727 with the 1324 Southwestern Railway service to Dorking. Arriving next to terminate with a Southwestern Railway service off Alton is 450-049 and 450-034. Next out to depart is 458-506 and 458-512, working the 1327 Southwestern Railway service to Kingston. Arriving next to terminate with a Southwestern Railway service off Hampton Court is 707-022 and 707-017. Next out to depart is 450-007, 450-079 and 450-032 with the 1330 Southwestern Railway service to Portsmouth Harbour. Over on the far side, terminating with a Southwestern Railway service off of Shepperton is 455-901 and 455-917. One in, one out now with the departure of 455-919 and 455-733 and the arrival of 450-031 and 450-014. Working the 1333 Southwestern Railway service to Guildford and terminating 5 minutes early with Southwestern Railway service off Basingstoke, respectively. Another 1 in 1 out now with the departure of 444023 and 444006 in the arrival of 455705 and 455739 with the 1335 Southwestern Railway service to Weymouth and terminated with the Southwestern Railway service off Guildford respectively. Departed over on the far side is 455711 and 455710, working the 1336 Southwestern Railway service to Hampton Court. And your final train of the session is 455871 and 455729, terminating with a Southwestern Railway service off Chessington South. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed what you saw, click on the 2 videos here at the end screen. Helps out the channel. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you are new and got this far. And we'll see you all in the next video, folks, wherever that may take us. We'll see you then, folks.